Well, hey, welcome to Let's Sit With This. I'm Kristen Calloway, a licensed therapist, and this is a place where we talk about hard things in a way that actually makes sense. More like chatting around a campfire than sitting in a therapist's office. Here we talk about getting through hard moments, healing old hurt, and growing into someone you're proud of. So pull up a chair, get comfy, and let's sit with this together. Well, hello. Welcome to the Therapist's Bookshelf Book Club, also known as the Last Minute Book Club, because yes, it's April and I'm just now recording March's episode. Listen, done late is better than not done at all in my book. Also, I needed time to set up my second recording studio, also known as get a microphone and headphones to record in my closet when everyone in my house is sleeping. So, here we go. This is your first time listening to this series. Welcome. Pull up a chair, grab a snack. Every month, I pick a book from my therapist to be read list and share my thoughts with you. Nothing about this is sponsored or influenced by anyone. These are books that I've genuinely wanted to read and believe that they could help me grow as a therapist and hopefully help my clients too. This month, we read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I picked this book for two main reasons. One, I really enjoy reading people's stories of overcoming adversity and the lessons that they took from it. I'm drawn to stories of people surviving circumstances where hope just seems impossible. Human beings have always been storytellers, and I believe that we find healing both in sharing our own stories and in hearing the stories of others. I also picked this book specifically because Dr. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist who developed a model of therapy called logotherapy based on his experiences before, during, and after his time in Nazi concentration camps. So I was curious to see how his clinical wisdom was going to be woven into his life experiences. To be honest, this book is hard to put into words. Not just because he recounts experiences during one of the worst atrocities in human history, things that are nearly impossible for me to fathom happening to someone, but because the message itself is so profound, simple and complex at the same time. He talks about the greatest task for any person being to find meaning in their life. There's a line in the foreword that stopped me. Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing, your freedom to choose how you will respond. I have enormous respect for Dr. Frankl. The message lands in the way it does, not because of research or credentials, not because he gave a bunch of TED Talks or has written 10 books or done research for decades, but because he's giving it from inside Auschwitz. He lived his own theories. He watched them play out in the people imprisoned alongside him. As a therapist who works with people healing from trauma, the question of why comes up again and again. I rarely have an answer. Now, sometimes I can offer a clinical explanation. Perhaps we can get some insight into, probably what was going on for that person. But it never makes sense in the way that we want it to. It never makes sense to where someone can say, oh, okay, and be fine with it, because we're never going to be okay with trauma. The journey of healing often shifts the question from, why did this happen to me? A valid question, but we will always be looking for an answer, to what meaning can come from this? Now that question can feel impossible depending on where you are in your healing, but I promise it's a place you can get to when you do the work. The second half of the book covers logotherapy itself. I found value in it as an overarching framework, and I can see how it layers well with other models. Now, it's quite dated, which is no fault of Dr. Frankl's. And the interventions I don't really feel like they're specific enough to stand alone as a sole treatment model. But I will absolutely be weaving his principles into my own clinical work. And I'll be recommending this book to clients I think would benefit from it. Now, this is not a light vacation reading. The content is heavy, and I'm glad that I didn't try to read this in one sitting. It took me a little while to digest some of the stories that he gave. The book's divided into two parts. The first part is not all of his experiences, but a number of his experiences during his time in 3 different camps. It takes a while to digest, and it's still honestly just hard for me to fathom that those things happened. But this book is transformative. I think it can be transformative for everyone. It shifted my perspective on suffering in my own life, not in a comparing traumas kind of way, but in a way that widened my view of what suffering can look like, how we can respond to it. I got such perspective by finding the things that gave other people hope while they were imprisoned in Auschwitz, while they were potentially facing the gas chambers daily. Now, I read it in both a physical copy and an ebook. They both seemed fine. If you're going to do an audiobook, I'd keep headphones on it for sure and keep the kids away or make sure they're in bed, because he's quite graphic in some things, not in an explicit or vulgar way, but he's just very upfront about events that happened and how it took a toll on people, and that's definitely not things that little ears need to hear. So I stand by this one. Everyone should read about people who have overcome the unimaginable. It gives you perspective and inspiration in a way that very little else can. Okay, let's talk about what we're reading next. For April, we're reading Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. The subtitle says it all. A therapist, her therapist, and our lives revealed. Now, I've already read this one, but I loved it so much. And let me tell you, this is one of the few books where I have actually laughed out loud from it. But I loved it so much, I just wanted to read it again. And I wish everybody on this planet would read it. It's so good. She just does this great way of giving an insight into what it's like to be a therapist with clients in a way that's not stuffy or far-reaching or anything like that. And also what it's like to be a client in therapy yourself. And this month, you'll also get an episode where I share a little bit about my own journey as a client in therapy and how to know when you've found a good therapist. So get your book, get to reading, and I'll save you a spot for next time.